is a Democratic senator from California going to do to defend democracy from attacks by the extreme right wing in the Senate? So people can't stop talking about it in South San Francisco. What would you like to see a Democratic senator from California do to defend democracy from attacks from the right wing?
What I really want to see is corporate money out of politics, right? How is the right wing funded, right? The big corporations, big oil companies, big real estate interests. And so once we get that corporate money out, I think we're going to, our representatives represent the will of the people and not that of big money.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, James, everybody. James Coleman, give it up wherever you are. Raise your glass. Very excited. Thank you for joining us, obviously, and giving us your thoughts. And maybe we can check in.
Comedy intros and outros. Tip your bar and wait staff.
Tip your bar and wait staff.
Everybody. Buy his album.
We have another interview coming up. We have someone else who is watching this forum with us tonight. Ariella Lara is an Oakland High School student and also a member of the Sunrise Movement, trying to fight for climate justice. Ariella, are you with us to give your take?
Yes, hello.
What's going on, girl? Question for you. Do you think that once a candidate can no longer identify any of the bands playing at Coachella, they shouldn't be running?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I would say that as long as they're able to connect with their young voters, as long as they're able to ensure us like childcare, as long as they're ensuring us like climate education, I don't think I mind so much. So if they can't identify some bands at a Coachella, I just want to be able to protect us, to ensure that we have a future, a livable future, and one where they're investing in us.
Absolutely.
And so what will you be looking to hear tonight from the candidates that will let you know which one you're most excited to protest by you locking your head to the desk in their office? And as a father of teenagers, I'm super hip and connected. And so how will you be able to tell which candidate has W Riz?
Well,
My kids think that's cringe when I say that, by the way.
No, Riz. I think Riz is important, but I also think Riz is about trust. I think Riz is
about trust, everybody.
Yeah. I think like when we look at our candidates, I want to be able to trust them. I want them to be able to provide effective solutions, effective action. And I think Riz is a great way to put it. It's like, it's like, I want to favor them. And yeah, it's like about how they're going to handle adversity in their office, how they're going to be able to attack solutions when they're under pressure. And I think Riz in that case could work. Yeah. Like, it's about like how much I trust them in office. But I love the way you put it there.
I mean, I guess I have thoughts on, I have a question about what you think, what you won't settle for when it comes to climate change and climate justice, right? Like we've got President Biden, who is, very excited about rolling out electric vehicle charging stations and rebates. And, the doomsday clock is, I don't know, what are we at, Ariella? Like 7 years or something, 6 years? I mean, you might be
very soon
through college by that point or through grad school. But so what are you looking for when it comes to bold climate action from, a future senator here?
Yeah, I think that when we think of climate action, we have to make sure that we're focusing on the intersectionality behind it, that we're honing in the idea of just as, we only have a few years left. And you need to make sure that you're honing in all different sectors, because climate change, climate justice is about ensuring that you're looking into Brown and Latinx communities, that you're investing in our education, that you're investing in our healthcare. I think intersectionality plays a big part in that, because climate change is a pressing issue. It's so daunting for my future. It's so daunting to go into my classroom and fear the floods and fear the fires. It's right side out of our windows. And so action must be taken now, and you need to focus on the intersectionality behind it, the fact that there's a reality on like communities who are facing the brunt of it. And so I always go back to that point of how like climate change is about climate justice.
Yes. Love it. NATO?
I'm just sitting with the profundity. Climate change is about climate justice. Taking it in. I'm getting it tattooed on my forehead right after this.
Ariella, anything else that you want to ask? Like if you, like what else are you looking for? Or is that, I don't know, because I didn't understand Riz, so I kind of like, I blacked out while you were talking about that because it was just so.
Okay, boomer.
Riz is an interesting way to put it, but I want to like end it off with like talking about the Green New Deal and the Green New Deal for schools specifically, because this is a campaign that is really focusing on building better buses and better buildings, honing in and reinvesting on renewable energy in our schools. It's about telling us the truth about the climate crisis. It's about setting a plan for when climate disaster strikes. There's so many demands that the Green New Deal for School has set forth, and I kind of want to end it off on that note because it's so important to me right now and something that I'm working towards, because we're having a camp in August, and I want our next senator of California to be in support of solutions like the Green New Deal for Schools and something that was reproposed recently. And so this is something very important to me, and I just want to end it off there. Yeah.
Yay, everybody give it up for Ariella Lara, a high school student from
Oakland. Give it up for the Sunrise Movement.
And give it up for the Sunrise Movement, of which she is a
Gen
member.
Z in general.
And just Gen Z in general. And Riz. I love Riz's work. You know, he's really hot.
Riz is, as my kids tell me, Riz is short for charisma.
Yeah.
So they talk about who has Riz and who doesn't have Riz.
It did sound like swag. Like I felt like it was like.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. We don't say swag anymore.
We don't. Yeah, we said, yeah, we're from the 90s.
NATO, any final thoughts about what you're looking for? You know, what's the toughest question you think they have tonight to answer?
I think Palestine. So somebody here would like me to say that the toughest question that they're going to have to answer tonight is going to be about Palestine.
Wrong.
Wrong?
The toughest question. Think that's going
to be the hardest question?
The toughest question is, can we wait a year?
Discussion groups.
Okay.
By the way.
To me, the toughest question is, can we wait another year for Dianne Feinstein to not do anything?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the toughest question is like, what is it going to take to stop the right-wing attack on democracy and the entire planet?
Yep.
And how are we going to do it?
Yeah. And how much urgency are you going to be working with when you're in there? And also, how do we off Adam Schiff non-violently?
How do you off non-violent? I mean, yeah, right. So, given minority capture of democratic institutions by the right wing and all the non-majoritarian tools in place in terms of the Supreme Court and the filibuster and the Electoral College, how do we create a democracy in America?
Yeah, and also, how do you actively troll Kyrsten Sinema? Do you just wear the things she's already worn on the Senate floor?
Yeah.
Do you do the mini backpack and the tutu? Do you do the sort of the Big Bird, at the Met Gala look? Because I would just straight up roll it. That's what I would do. And she just.
I think you should get some Kyrsten Sinema hair, Francesca. You should dye your hair the Kyrsten Sinema color.
It's coming. Look, I just, I need a very intense midlife crisis. And
it's a horrible thing to say about your child.
No, it's happening. I'll get there, guys.
Okay.
Oh man, let's get this started.
Let's get it started.
Enough from us.
I want to introduce my friend, our host, the director of the California Working Families Party, former supervisor from San Francisco, ladies and gentlemen, Jane Kim.
Hello. Hi. Welcome everyone to the first public U.S. Senate Candidates Forum in California in 2024. We are really excited to be here, and there is a ton of anticipation to hear directly from our candidates who are running to succeed Dianne Feinstein, who has held the seat since 1992. Right now, we have over 1,100 folks that are tuning in from their homes, from neighborhood restaurants and bars and neighborhood centers. And we have large watch parties in Sacramento, Oakland, Richmond, South San Francisco, Redwood City, San Jose, Gilroy, Merced, Fresno, Bakersfield, Los Angeles, Ontario, Santa Ana, San Diego, and of course, right here in San Francisco. So we're asking everyone to capture the moment and take a photo of your watch party or record a selfie video and then share it on social media and hashtag Porter Lee WFP. Yes, it rhymes. And our staff thought of it. Hashtag Porter Lee WFP. Also, we would love for you to tweet during the forum your favorite lines from the candidates, your thoughts, and even your questions. And we might ask one of your questions tonight. Finally, I also want to thank our incredible house party hosts who have spent the last month gathering folks in their community, in their neighborhoods, to make tonight a success. So who is the Working Families Party? The Working Families Party believes that securing governing power for the 99% is critical to building a prosperous and strong nation. And our mission is to challenge a two-party system that prioritizes corporations and billionaires over everyday Americans. We're creating a political home here in California for individuals who share a belief that a wealthy nation can and should invest in us and the success of everyday Californians. And this commitment includes Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, tuition-free public college, and affordable housing for all. We believe this agenda is absolutely possible if we organize together. And just last year, WFP elected 6 new progressive champions to Congress in incredibly competitive Democratic primaries, including Greg Cesar, Dalia Ramirez, Summer Lee, and Maxwell Frost. And we want to play a major role in California in 2024. So join us. California can and should lead for the nation. This is a state that overwhelmingly voted for Bernie Sanders to be our Democratic nominee in 2020. And it is a state where the future shows that 3 out of every 4 eligible voter under 30 is a person of color. We want a senator who is going to represent and champion working Californians. And joining WFP as a dues-paying member will support our work to recruit and identify candidates up and down the ballot, and then help them when they are elected to win and pass a working families agenda. And you can join us by texting CA Senate at 30403, and it's at the bottom of the screen. So text CA Senate to 30403. All right, and I want to give a big shout out to the 12,000 members strong Writers Guild of America, who, by the way, entertained and comforted us through the pandemic and are now striking for fair pay against billionaire corporations like Netflix, Disney, and Warner Brothers. And this week is Teachers Appreciation Week. So we also want to recognize the 3,000 members of Oakland Education Association who are also on strike, asking for better pay, safer schools for teachers and students, fighting for affordable housing for unhoused families, and more nurses and counselors in our schools. So let's support our teachers, and while we're at it, let's tax extreme wealth and pay all of our educators more. Now, California was the first state to elect 2 women to the US Senate. So we are really excited today to have 2 dynamic women leaders and public servants, and mothers who have said yes to speaking directly to you tonight. I want to welcome Congresswomen Barbara Lee and Katie Porter. So we had a coin toss 2 days ago to decide the order. And first up is the Congresswoman representing Oakland and Northern Alameda. Congresswoman Barbara Lee represents California's 12th district and has since 1998. And she serves on the Budget Committee and the very powerful Appropriations Committee, which oversees all federal government spending. Lee began her activism similar to our Sunrise High School students in high school, organizing with the NAACP to become the first Black cheerleader in her high school and integrating her cheerleading squad. We want to welcome Congresswoman Barbara Lee.
Thank you, Jane. Should I start?
Well, we have an opening question for you.
Oh, okay, great.
Which is, why do you believe you are the best candidate for the Working Families Party? And what is your strategy to victory in the upcoming election?
Well, let me first thank you for inviting me to be with you, and also Congresswoman Katie Porter. Working Families Party is a party whose values reflect the values that I have held all of my life. And my record hopefully speaks for itself. I have experience that's deep and broad as a member of the California legislature, now as a member of Congress. I have always fought for working families, for people who live below the poverty line, and yes, for the middle class. But I think it's important that we recognize that in California, we have 20 million people who are one paycheck away from poverty. In the Senate, you don't hear any senators, you don't see an agenda that really highlights those individuals and those families who really who need a champion to support their efforts and their desire to have the economy work for them. I've always fought for working families and low-income families. I've fought to make sure, and in many ways, oftentimes I've had to take on my own party because I've stood strong and been very courageous when, of course, when I had to fight against the authorization to use military force by myself. It started a series of wars, perpetual wars. I've led on making sure that cannabis reform is part of our Democratic Party agenda because we know the disproportionate impacts on Black and brown people. I've been very involved on our housing issues. I've worked with Senator Sanders when he was in the House. I actually led the House bill for the Housing Trust Fund. Housing is extremely important in California, from making sure that people do not get evicted and do not become unsheltered, all the way to where young people should have an opportunity, if they so desire, to buy a home in California. And so housing is a big issue for me. And I hope you all would look at my record and see that not only have I had the experience and fought for people, working families, but because of that, you can trust me to fight in the Senate for all of the issues. You talk about climate justice, for example. I was in COP27 last year in Egypt. I chaired the committee on appropriations that funds all of our global climate funds. And let me tell you, people were talking about the developed world and how we have just destroyed developing countries. And we need to be there, just like in our own communities here in America, with climate justice. And so I'm really proud of the international work that I've done on climate justice and making sure that the US pays to repair the damage of what we have done abroad. But also here in the United States, I want to be in the Senate so that I can include climate justice and the bill that I've co-sponsored with Congressman Raul Grijalva around climate justice and making sure that climate justice is part of the overall climate policy in the Senate. And so there are many, many issues that I want to take on, but the lens that I want to bring is the lens that is not in the Senate right now. And we need to have more diversity in the Senate, and you need to have somebody who's had the experiences that I've had, which many of you have had, but I have used my life experiences to put together legislation and funding priorities to make life better for everyone.
So thank you for also timing your answers appropriately. We are providing 3 minutes for every question that we ask, and you might hear a timer go off at 30 seconds. So our next question, there is more income and wealth inequality today in our country than ever, surpassing levels that we have not seen since the 1920s, almost 100 years ago. The top 1% now receives 45% of all new income in this country and has witnessed a staggering $21 trillion surge in wealth. Meanwhile, the remaining 99% of Americans find themselves working longer hours and multiple jobs just to make ends meet. California, despite being the home to the most billionaires, also has the highest poverty rate in the nation. Regrettably, Republicans and many Democrats seem to prioritize the interests of billionaires and large corporations over working Americans and our nation's infrastructure. However, this hasn't always been the case. Half a century ago, top tax rates on excessive corporate profits reached as high as 90%, and for individuals as high as 95%. And during this time, America's middle class was larger than the lower and upper classes. What tax policies do you support federally and in California to address extreme wealth inequality and grow our middle class?
Sure. First, let me say the importance of the child tax credit and making that permanent. Because during COVID and when we did extend the child tax credit, we what happened was 50% of children who were living below the poverty line and living in poverty really had a pathway out of poverty. So the child tax credit is extremely important. Secondly, we've got to have a fair tax system. And I have worked with Senator Sanders, and we're about ready to introduce the Tax Excessive CEO Pay Act, which would tax companies that pay their top executives 50 times more than the median workers. And that is extremely important to begin to get some fairness in the tax system. I've always introduced the Income Equity Act, which would deny corporations tax deductions of excessive compensation. So we have to really tackle the gap between corporate owners and corporate leaders and the average working man or woman in these jobs, because there's no tax fairness. And I support all of the efforts that other members as their co-sponsors in terms of the big oil windfall profits tax, no tax breaks for union busting. That's extremely important. The Billionaire Minimum Income Tax Act, no tax breaks for outsourcing. That's so important. We can't have our jobs continue to be outsourced, which they are. And for the 99% Act, which Jimmy Gomez has introduced. So it's important that we understand that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And we need to have fair distribution of the tax burden, and it should be on major corporations because they are running away with our tax dollars. They're running away with working men and women and working families' tax dollars. And it's a shame and disgrace. Also, the estate tax. We've got some are talking about reducing the state tax. Well, I believe that we must strengthen the estate tax. And we have to have additional tax brackets for extremely wealthy millionaires and billionaires. And we've got to implement multiple tax credits that benefit, mind you, low income and middle class Americans. And I've always fought for the EITC and a lot of the earned income tax credit. We need to make sure that people understand that they are eligible. I've had in my district, no one knew about the EITC until I started organizing forums and bringing, this first time I was happy the IRS was around, bringing the IRS in to help process the EITC. And that took off. And finally, we got organizations, nonprofits to conduct these conferences so that working families would be aware of and be able to benefit from the EITC. And so we've got to have a tax system that's fair. And we've got to make sure that, finally, I'll just say in terms of our democracy, we've got to get money out of politics and overturn Citizens United, because as long as corporations are seen as people, then come on, we have an unfair political system, which just won't work for working families and for ordinary people who really could make a major contribution to changing this country for the better.
Thank you, Congresswoman. So we are now going to start rotating around the state, and we are headed down to San Jose. And I want to introduce our next interviewee, the first Indian American elected to the California legislature, and a Working Families Party champion, Assembly Member Ash Kara. A former public defender, he's the author of numerous criminal justice reform bills, as well as Medicare for All in California. And he will be asking the question, which won in our Twitter poll this week. Assembly Member.
All right, well, Jane, it's great to see you. Thank you for your incredible leadership and the leadership of the Working Families Party. Congresswoman Lee, it's always an honor to have the opportunity to interact with you. And I know you may have I think you and Congresswoman Porter left me messages, but I was waiting for tonight to have the opportunity to hear from both of you. And I'm happy to respond back, but I wanted to start by asking a really important question, and it's a three-parter because of it. As you know, a strong majority of Californians support guaranteed health care for all Americans by expanding Medicare coverage. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that Medicare for All would not only save at least 40,000 lives annually, but also reduce healthcare spending by up to $650 billion a year. Presently, there are only 12 co-sponsors in the U.S. Senate for this critical initiative. As a member of Congress and a co-sponsor of Medicare for All, I'm eager to learn, first of all, about the actions you've undertaken thus far to advance Medicare for All. And number two, how will you work towards building political consensus and garnering support from your Senate colleagues to ensure that this life-saving and cost-saving reform gains the backing it deserves and enables this vital legislation to progress? And the last part of it is, in your capacity as our senator, what would you do to facilitate the passage of Medicare for All bill specific to California, something that I'm working on very closely with our beloved nurses? So please, Congresswoman, tell us your thoughts.
Well, first of all, let me put this in context, because from day one, I introduced the first single payer bill when I was in the California legislature. I mean, this goes back to the day in the early 90s. I moved forward, and when I was elected to Congress, then it was Senator Hilda Solis picked up the single payer bill that I had introduced. And I have fought for single payer practically all of my life. I actually lived in Great Britain, and I know what a healthcare system is that does not have the profit motive in it. And so we've got to get the profit motive and corporations out of healthcare. Also, when it comes to single payer and Medicare for All, Congressman Conyers, and I think the bill was HR 676 early on in the I think it was 98, 99, when I first came to Congress, introduced that bill. I think I was the second or third co-sponsor on that bill. And it's so important, once again, that Medicare for All be championed in the Senate. And if there are only 12 co-sponsors in the Senate, I think what I would do is organize with you. I'm an organizer. I was a community worker with the Black Panther Party. I was the organizer for Shirley Chisholm's campaign. I've always organized, and I would be with the Working Families Party and organize around the country to make sure that these senators heard your voices and make democracy work, because it's not working now. And so I would join with you to push these senators from their districts and from their states to make sure that they sign up to Medicare for All, because we can't allow profits and corporations to continue to make medical decisions for people. And that is what is taking place. And when we were negotiating the Affordable Care Act, there was some of us with the Progressive Caucus and the Black Caucus, the Tri-Caucus, the API, K-PAC, and the Hispanic Caucus, who tried to get President Obama then to put a single payer option in the Affordable Care Act. And we fought like you would not believe. We could not get him to do that because the votes weren't there. So we said, okay, if you can't do single payer as an option, then put in a public option. Well, we had to fight to get a public option because the votes weren't there. So we got a very moderate measure in there about states being able to, if they so desire, could implement a public option or single payer, which was not acceptable. But that was the reality of what happened during those negotiations. But we did get provisions in for health equity and for a lot of other issues that people of color and low income people, so deserve. And we're still pushing. Now people are getting ready to be thrown off of Medicaid because of what is taking place around the end of the COVID pandemic. And so we have many, many issues to deal with in the healthcare space, but we have to get Medicare for All passed. I fully support it. And like I say, I've been doing this in terms of single payer and making sure that corporations don't run the healthcare industry. It's got to be people powered. Healthcare is a human right. And I've always believed that and will continue to do that. And I would organize with you around the country to make sure these senators signed up and push the envelope and get Medicare for all passed.
Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman. All right, our next questioner is Michael Tubbs, the youngest mayor elected in the city of Stockton, California, and was featured in the HBO documentary, Stockton on My Mind. He is now the founder of End Poverty in California and is a special advisor to Governor Gavin Newsom. Michael, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jane. Really appreciate your leadership, not just in the Working Families Party, but throughout the state for the past decade or so. And good to see you, Congressmember. Good to see all folks who care about working families and working people in the great state of California. Congresswoman, my question is about sort of reducing poverty. And we know that the initial Build Back Better legislation was both promising and exciting. It proposed programs such as universal child care, which we heard about earlier today, paid sick leave, and tuition-free community college. And it symbolized a substantial investment in supporting working Americans. Build Back Better also originally proposed to continue the child tax credit, which you mentioned previously, which is a form of guaranteed income. And as you said, cut child poverty nearly in half in 2021. Unfortunately, these key provisions were cut during its journey through the Senate to secure the necessary votes from Senators Manchin and Sinema. So my question to you, Congressmember, as a senator, which specific components of this legislation would you prioritize for reintroduction, active advocate for, and successfully pass? And secondly, will you champion the expansion and the permanence of the child tax credit to ensure its positive impact endures?
Michael, it's hard to prioritize because I would want to introduce all of them. You know, it's really, for me personally, prioritizing what makes life better for everyone and what makes this economy work for everyone is something that is very difficult to do. I want to see our caregivers paid a living wage with benefits. I want to see our child care system work where no more than 7% of their income, if they had that, to pay for child care services. We didn't get that done because of Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema. And so we have to have a system. Let me tell you, when I raised my two children, they had to go to class with me because I could not afford childcare. Now here we are in 2023, nothing has changed. And so I know that experience from, my life, raising two small kids on public assistance and not being able to afford childcare. They sat through all my classes with me. And so I would prioritize all of this because my agenda is about closing these gaps on inequality, making sure that everyone has a shot at the American dream, and making sure that the 20 million people who are living one paycheck away from poverty in California don't have to worry anymore about that because they're being paid a living wage, not raising the minimum wage, but a living wage, and that they have childcare available, affordable, and if they don't have the money to pay for it, the federal government, look at the defense budget, $800-some billion. We have the resources if we prioritize our people, putting people before politics and people before corporations. So I take some of that defense spending and fight, like right now, Mark Pocan and I myself are trying to cut it by $100 billion, and we need your help in doing that. But it's very important that we find the resources because we have the resources to make sure that people have the life that they so deserve. And finally, I'll just say universal income, guaranteed annual income. I'm one who supports that. Some people need time. We need workforce training. We need a just transition to the jobs of the future, to this new economy. And so we need to make sure that people don't have to scrape and don't have to worry about how they're going to feed their families in California, but rather know what you did, for example, in Stockton, that people feel that they have some dignity and an income coming in while they raise their kids and find a good paying job. So it has many, many legs to it, but I wouldn't want to prioritize because everything is needed for our working families in California. And we should not have 20 million people living one paycheck away from poverty in the golden state of California.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our next questioner is a Burger King worker in Oakland and one of the key leaders in the Fight for 15 and the statewide Fast Recovery Act, which establishes a higher minimum wage and better working condition for the 500,000 fast food workers across the state of California. I want to welcome Alondra Hernandez.
Hola.
And Alondra will be asking this question in Spanish, and I will translate after.
Ok, buenas tardes. Soy Alondra, trabajadora de Burger King Oakland y soy líder de la lucha por 15 y un sindicato. Bueno, Biden se proclama como el presidente más prosindicato de la historia. Sin embargo, existe una gran brecha entre lo que se dice que hace y lo que realmente se hace. Hay leyes como el PRO Act y el Employer Free Choice Act que aún están pendientes, mientras que los esfuerzos de sindicalización han cobrado impulso sobre todo el país. En particular, 300 ubicaciones de Starbucks se han sindicalizado con éxito. Y en California, 500,000 de trabajadores de comida rápida, como yo, aseguramos establecer estándares mínimos en toda la industria. Y aún así, se están desafiados por corporaciones multimillonarias para el voto en noviembre del 2024. Ahora mi pregunta es, ¿cuáles son sus planes específicos para fortalecer la protección de los trabajadores y garantizar que tengamos una voz en el trabajo, incluyendo nuestros derechos como sindicalizados? ¿Y qué medidas han propuesto para mejorar nuestros derechos de los trabajadores y empoderar a los trabajadores como yo?
Good evening from Oakland. President Biden says that he is the most pro-union president in history. However, there is a notable disparity between the strong proclamations and actual policy implementation. Essential legislation such as the PRO Act and the Employee Free Choice Act remains pending. Meanwhile, unionization efforts continue to gain momentum nationwide. Notably, 300 Starbucks locations have successfully unionized. And in California, 500,000 fast food workers have secured the ability to establish industry-wide minimum standards, which are now unfortunately being challenged by big corporations on the November 2024 ballot. What are your specific plans to fortify worker protections and ensure that employees have a voice in the workplace, including the right to unionize? And what measures have you proposed to enhance worker rights and empower employees?
Sure. Well, first, I fully support the PRO Act, and we have got to move forward to make sure that we strengthen worker protections. That's the first thing. And I serve on the Appropriations Committee, and every year I try to put more funding in the National Labor Relations Board because that's a big priority for, I know, working men and women labor unions. But also in California, let me just say the Fight for 15, I want to thank all of you for that because I've been on picket lines in Oakland, in New York, all over the country in the Fight for 15 and fighting for 15. But you know what? We need a living wage. We need to make sure that the $21, $22, $23, the bump in the minimum wage to a living wage passes and that is the law of the land. Because in California, how in the world are people going to live off of $15 an hour? That is just unacceptable given the cost of living, which of course speaks to the intersection between that and housing. And whenever labor speaks in terms of labor policy, I've always supported labor. Companies like Amazon and Starbucks, I was out early supporting unionization for workers at Amazon and at Starbucks and all of the fast food agencies and restaurants, excuse me. And I think it's important that companies be penalized for union busting tactics. And we should outlaw the right to work laws across the country. And I would work very hard to do that. My past shows I would be persistent in continuing with this fight in the Senate. It's very important that we remove the barriers for organizing and not allow the big bosses to put these barriers in the way. And I saw what happened in Alabama, for example, with Amazon workers and what they did there. And it was just a shame and disgrace how they messed over the workers there. And so I would continue to work, and it's important to work with you, the Working Families Party, as well as other organizations from the outside, because as a member now of the House, of the Senate also, it's important to get out there into the community and join you on picket lines, join you with the push for the minimum wage to a living wage, and any ballot initiative that comes on the ballot that tries to erode what the legislature has done. I'm going to be out there fighting against those measures, because workers deserve to be able to have a decent life in America, in the golden state of California. And with 20 million people living below the poverty line in California, it's unacceptable. And I will do anything and everything to make sure we change that.
Thank you, Congresswoman. The 30 minutes went so quick. We're actually ready for your closing comments to our audience tonight.
It's 30 minutes. Are we at 30 minutes? Well, I just want to first thank you. I've been around the state and met many of Working Families Party organizations and grassroots groups who are doing wonderful work. And I just want to thank you all for everything that you're doing each and every day to really not only making life better for everyone, but really dealing with systemic change and institutional change, lifting people out of poverty, dealing with mass incarceration and police reform, making sure that climate justice is part of your agenda, making sure that the Democratic Party holding them accountable. I want you to know, I was on the platform committee twice, how we're organizing our campaign. So thank you all again very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, for joining us tonight. If you want to learn more about her candidacy or volunteer, go to her social media handle at Barbara Lee 4CA, at Barbara Lee 4CA. And we also want to thank Assemblymember Ash Kalra, former Mayor Michael Tubbs, and Alondra Hernandez for your leadership in fighting for everyday Californians and your insightful questions tonight. So we're going to go back to our political spin room with Nato Green and Francesca Fioritini.
Nato, scurry on over there. That was great.
Hey, yeah, it was great. I loved it. How are you doing? What do you think?
I'm fine.
You
Is
know,
there
I
more?
have to say, I'm really disappointed that there was no mention of specifically shitting down Josh Hawley's throat.
I know.
I feel like she really fumbled the bag on that one.
Yeah, I was looking
we
at
can all agree.
Stockton, but was let down.
Yeah. You know, people who are here at El Rio, how did you feel? Do you like that?
Yeah.
They're clapping. I don't know if you
They're
can tell, but they're
clapping.
clapping, Francesca.
good.
They're very enthusiastic. They feel very positive.
Good.
It was incredible to hear about. I have to say, like, my personal favorite moment was just thinking about like how much, you know, DeSantis and all these conservatives are like obsessing about cancel culture and woke and stuff, and to have Barbara Lee just come out and say like I was a Black Panther.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you know, like for them to be like, oh, what are you gonna do, cancel me? And then for her to be like, fuck you, as a Black Panther. I was just like, I feel like we need more of that energy in politics.
Yes, I think she should just do like fireside Panther stories.
Yeah.
And just like do that for TikTok. The youngs would love it. No, but you know, Representative Lee has a lot of grit and a lot of experience and wisdom. And, you know, she's right. We don't always read the party platform, and we should read it, you know? And so I like that about her, that there's a lot of like, not gonna put up with the BS because I've been there, done that, knows her way around very well. It can be a blessing and a curse, to be honest with you, right? It's a blessing, and you think, all right, this person, I mean, obviously Representative Lee has so much experience, but is there too much coziness, right? But again, she's never one to shy away from that challenge. And I love that she mentioned peace and the defense spending multiple times. to say nothing of the organizing background. So anyway, yeah, them's my thoughts.
I also like that she talked about wanting to repeal Citizens United and that corporations shouldn't be people. I think she didn't go far enough. I think she should also say that not only should corporations be people, but neither should billionaires.
Yes.
I think we can compromise that millionaires can be 3/5 of a person.
I like that.
That's my reparations plan. Yeah. Calls are breaking out here of NATO for Senate. So
Same.
But I do disagree on the calls for single payer because, as much as I like the idea of everyone getting health care, it's like I'm on the fence about my doctor, but I really love my insurance claims adjuster.
I know.
I have a deep personal connection with insurance claims adjuster and the actuaries. So
I've already memorized
like
how to actually speak to a real person, all the numeric order I need to punch in to the phone. And so I feel like single payer now is just taking that away from me,
I know.
Because I like going through the maze of speaking to a real person on the phone.
Yeah. I just feel like I don't want single payer unless there's a lot of drop-down menus. Do you know what I'm saying?
Agreed. We like bureaucracy.
That's right.
Oh God. All right.
So is there anything else? So how do you feel as a parent? Does it affect you, the idea of extending the earned income the earned income tax credit?
Yes. I literally got pregnant like a few months outside of the window and I was like, no, right? So by the time we pass it again, she'll probably no longer qualify because she'll be 18. But no, I'm just kidding. Things move very quickly in the Senate. Kill me.
It's famous for its swiftness.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready for the next candidate, Jane? Can we move it? Jorge, can we go? It demonstrating the incredible, Francesca, you can't see it here, but demonstrating the incredible resolve and commitment of the Californian left. About 60% of the audience arrived 45 minutes late. So the people of San Francisco are definitely ready to reclaim democracy, provided it doesn't require showing up on time.
This is why we can't win, people. Come on now. Come on.
And on that note, we're going to do a quick selfie video recording of our crowd for social media. So we're going to start now if y'all want to cheer. All right. If it's not on social media, it didn't happen. So now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, a candidate who made history as the first Democrat to flip the 45th, now 47th congressional district in Orange County. She is a law professor, a mother of 3 school-aged children, and is known for her exceptional whiteboard skills, employing them to vividly illustrate the expensive inefficiencies of the health insurance industry, and known for her songwriting skills, including the well-known tune, Mama, Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Become Bank Tellers, because 1/3 of them rely on public assistance despite working for billionaire bank corporations. Welcome, Congresswoman Katie Porter.
Thank you so much. Thank you, California. It's wonderful to be here with you tonight. Good evening. I want to start by thanking Jane Kim and the Working Families Party for putting this event together. And of course, I also want to thank everyone for tuning in, whether you're at a watch party or you're online. Thank you for being part of our democracy. Of course, I also just want to take a moment before I start to thank my incredible colleague, Barbara Lee, for bringing her strong and spirited participation to this forum. And then last, I want to just special shout out to our interpreters who are making it possible for everybody to listen and participate for the Congressional Progressive Caucus, where I was number 2 last caucus. and also being a frontliner with one of the toughest races that Democrats were facing. You can do both, win tough races and be a progressive, because in fact, progressive values are winning values. And so I want to talk a little bit about what I've done politically and then get a chance to talk with you more about policy in our conversation. So thank you very much. I'm excited. I don't know if you have an opening question you want to ask, but I'm ready.
Well, great. And thank you for taking the time to be with us this evening. Our opening question is, why do you believe you are the best candidate for the Working Families Party? And what is your strategy for victory in the upcoming election?
Well, the Working Families Party is about electing progressives to every level of government and in every part and pocket of California. And that is exactly what I have done in Orange County. And I want to run for the US Senate. I'm running for the US Senate to do exactly that in partnership with groups like Working Families Party and all of the coalition groups that are part of it, to engage folks in democracy and to be able to win tough races, to elect folks at every level of government who are going to fight for our shared values. I am a strong, tough campaigner. I have knocked a lot of doors in Huntington Beach as a progressive, and I'm still standing after that experience and still very much encouraged and in the fight. I was the top #2 fundraiser in the House last cycle behind only Kevin McCarthy. And I did that without taking a cent from corporate PACs, from federal lobbyists, or from executives with big oil, big banks, or big pharma. And I am proud to be the only candidate in this race who can say that they have never taken corporate PAC money. Even as I can also say I was the strongest Democratic fundraiser in the House last cycle. My pledge to not take corporate money, to not be bought off by industries like big oil, big pharma, is reflected in the work that I do, how I confront greedy CEOs directly, how I pass legislation to rein in Wall Street, and my willingness to speak truth to power, often with the whiteboard. There's this canard, some of you may have heard this. In Washington, it gets repeated on the ground in California, that candidates have to take corporate PAC money in order to win tough races. And I have shown that that is not the case. And I am committed to continuing to help those like-minded candidates win. We need to keep building out our progressive bench. That's a partnership that I want to have with the Working Families Party and all of our local activists to keep building out our bench of progressive leaders, including people of color and women. Women right now are less than halfway to representation in the US Senate, despite California's tradition of female senators. As part of my work to help elect candidates, and something I will continue to lean into as US Senator, I started Truth to Power, a leadership PAC that's given hundreds of thousands of dollars to progressive candidates who refuse to take corporate PAC money. And I have done that for candidates in every part and pocket of the country. And I don't just cut a check and walk away. I make it a point to stay in conversation with them, especially for first-time candidates, women, and people of color. I think California needs a leader in the Senate who knows how to win tough races and will help candidates at every level of government in every single election cycle run on our progressive values and win.
Thank you, Congresswoman. So, to our first issues question, you have been a staunch advocate for Medicare for All. How do you propose addressing the exorbitant prices of life-saving prescriptions, particularly when these medications are affordable in neighboring countries, but inaccessible to many Americans? Specifically, what measures would you implement to curtail the influence of big pharma through patent monopolies? How do you envision expanding the scope of price negotiation through Medicare to encompass a wider range of medications and reduce prescription costs covered by commercial insurance plans? And are you supportive of strategies like California, who will be producing insulin?
I have no problem calling out big pharma's BS. And there is this rumor in Washington, and it's being peddled increasingly to the American electorate. It's being peddled by lobbyists and backed by politicians who are bought by big pharma, that the pharmaceutical companies need to charge astronomical prices to fund research and development. And I have confronted multiple CEOs about this lie. I used my whiteboard to show that Big Pharma spends way more on stock buybacks than they do and dividends to enrich shareholders than they do on research and development to save lives. And that work that I have done exposing Big Pharma has helped push Congress toward real solutions. I passed a bill to hold pharmaceutical companies accountable for hiking prices faster than the inflation rate. That was signed into law as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. But our work is so far from over with regard to healthcare and pharma in particular. We have to fight to expand the list of drugs that Medicare can negotiate. It is simply not big enough to make drugs affordable for everyone who needs them. I'm also a big champion for making it easier for smaller companies to compete. We have to put an end to Big Pharma's abuse of the patent system. My office released a bombshell report about how Big Pharma targets and gobbles up smaller pharmaceutical companies that would otherwise be competitors. And what this does is make prices higher and reduce innovation. Our report showed how higher prices result and how these acquisitions kill the culture of innovation and creativity, and that grinds to a halt as profits take priority. Big Pharma also engages in anti-competitive behavior. They do this with regard to multiple actions within our patent system. They engage in what we call pay-to-delay tactics, which is where Big Pharma pays off companies that would otherwise be willing to step into the marketplace and manufacture competitor drugs or generics. We also have to put an end to Big Pharma's product hopping or patent thickening, where these are tweaks to pre-existing drugs that are designed to simply undermine competition and prevent the rise of generics that would bring down costs. I salute California for leading the way in boosting competition in the pharmaceutical industry. I am glad that they are going to take to manufacturing drugs like insulin, and I hope that this is a model that other states and the federal government, if necessary, can emulate. The federal government needs to be learning from California's innovations in healthcare, whether that's Big Pharma or whether that's the nursing staffing ratio that we have to keep people safe. I ran on Medicare for All when I took on a tough Republican incumbent, and I have never backed away from my support. I'm going to continue in this race and as senator to build support for Medicare for All, build our coalition, bring in independents who oppose Wall Street being involved in the pharmaceutical industry, bringing in small business owners who are getting ripped off by big health, and ultimately building the coalition we need to pass Medicare for All.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we're going to start rotating around the state, and we are going to head to San Diego. I want to introduce Andrea Guerrero, a social justice advocate and executive director of Alliance San Diego, who will be representing the team at Southern Borders Community Coalition, who could no longer make our forum tonight due to the changing conditions along our border related to the expiration of Title 42 pandemic era border policies tonight. Andrea, thank you for joining us.
Buenas noches, Congresswoman Katie Porter. The question I have for you is this: we can all agree that the immigration system is broken. Millions of people, including in my own family, who are eligible to stand in line to immigrate face a decades-long backlog, and millions more who have built a life here and are part of the fabric of this country do not have any line to stand in at all. Now the United States is turning away asylum seekers in danger and turning our backs on international human rights commitments made in the aftermath of World War. In 2 hours, the health-based exclusions under Title 42 will end, but new exclusions are replacing them. And as I speak, there are border agents who are preparing for a show of force that is anything but welcoming to children, women, and men who have suffered unimaginable trauma. Instead of passing comprehensive immigration reform, the Senate has focused on unaccountable border enforcement strategies that fuel abuse and impunity by border agents. What will you do to turn the page to provide pathways to citizenship, protect human rights, and hold border agents accountable?
Thank you very much for this incredibly timely and important question. One of the things I made very sure to do as representative is to go on the ground to the southern border in California for myself, to listen to the stories of those who are being hurt by Title 42, to visit the Mexico side of the border, to see what the challenges are that are being created with the administration's Remain in Mexico policy. I wanted to see, where would refugees go? How does the screening occur? What barriers are advocates facing? How long is the wait? And what I found when I asked about, how do I get in line? How would a refugee, where would they go? Where is the line for them to get in? What do I do if I wanted to apply for asylum? And the answer to that question was silence. Because as you point out, there is no line for so many people who need to seek refuge in this country. There is no process. And that is a lot of what's driving that more than anything, I would say, from my observations and conversations, is what's driving the chaos and the challenge that we are seeing for migrants, for migrant communities, for border communities here in the United States, and for families who have loved ones and community members who are unable to come successfully and safely to migrate to this country. You are absolutely right. Our failure, it's a congressional failure to enforce a legal immigration process, is leaving the strong and the able-bodied to their own efforts, while the most vulnerable, women, children, LGBTQ people, the elderly, they are getting left behind in this process. We are also empowering criminal enterprises. We are funding private detention facilities and detention companies, and we are burdening our border cities, our state agencies, and our charities, all with a problem that Congress needs to own, which is creating a meaningful and consistent and just immigration process. Look, our country was founded on being a place of refuge. We are not living up to our values, and we need to make it possible for people, especially asylum seekers, to actually get in line. We need an orderly and just process. This is also a little controversial in Washington, but here it is. I think politicians should keep their promises. The United States made a promise to DACA recipients that Congress has failed to see through. And the program is hanging on by a judicial thread, and an extremist court could strike it down at any point. Congress needs to protect DACA. It needs to provide a pathway for citizenship for dreamers and folks with temporary protected status. And too many Democrats need to avoid talking about immigration, and they instead need to lean into the importance of solving this problem.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And now I'd like to introduce Torm Nampasert, a senior organizer with Asian Pacific Environmental Network, a California organization dedicated to empowering Asian immigrant and refugee communities and neighborhoods that are on the front lines of combating big polluters. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I have lived in Richmond almost 50 years, Richmond, California. California is considering as a deep blue state, yet it is also the 7th largest oil producing state in the United States. And my community in Richmond live on the front line with a refinery. Alarmingly, also approximately 14% of California population, predominantly community of color, reside within a mine from active oil and gas well. I am worried about the planet we are leaving behind for our children, our grandchildren. We raised 11 children and now have 28 grandchildren. So I want to have a leader who is courageous enough to push rapid and unprecedented action to protect our home. The Working Family Party strongly support a Green New Deal, and want to wind down on the drilling and fracking. Here's my question for you. First is, do you endorse a federal prohibition on a new fracking and drilling permit, as well as fracking and drilling ban within 2,500 feet from homes and school? The second question is, which aspect of the Green New Deal would you prioritize and also actively champion during your first term as a senator? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Congratulations on your wonderful and amazing big family. And I want to thank you for coming to us from Richmond. I used to live in El Cerrito, and so I have seen exactly what you described. And of course, represent Orange County, where we have oil wells in Huntington Beach, onshore and offshore. I am really excited about the Green New Deal's commitment to growing our unionized workforce. And I think it is really important to understand that the premise of a Green New Deal is not just to do energy transformation, but it is also to do workforce transformation at the same time. We need labor to be our partners every step of the way to realize the goals of the Green New Deal. We cannot let this incredibly important industry transformation from dirty energy to clean energy be an excuse to bust unions, to weaken workers, and to create new hardships for families. And look, I know the special interest playbook on this. Big corporations wait till the industry goes through a revolution or a change, and that's when they attack workers and attack wages. And so I think the most exciting part about the Green New Deal is it's not just an energy bill, it is also an economic opportunity and workforce bill. We can have cleaner air and higher wages. And I think that is a really important part of this, to not let big oil, not let energy companies, whether they're green or dirty, use this moment to weaken wages and to hurt our workforce. You're exactly right, by the way, that our country, including California, has a long history of forcing vulnerable communities of color to bear the brunt of pollution. And that needs to end. I serve on the House Natural Resources Committee. I am a partner with Representative Grijalva, our chairman, on the Environmental Justice for All Act, and have been proud to move that bill out of committee and onto the House floor. I cannot wait to see it signed into law when I am in the United States Senate. Big oil's reckless drilling puts the health of our communities and our local economy and our planet at risk. And so I have called for and supported legislation that ends offshore drilling off the California coast and ends offshore drilling on federal land. Big oil has too much power in Washington. I refuse their money, so I have no problem holding them to account. And I have passed legislation to raise the fee on polluters that drill on public land, and that was signed into law. And I'm now working on holding big oil responsible for cleaning up the messes that they have made in communities like yours, as well as ending the sweetheart deals and tax breaks that are making it difficult for clean energy companies to compete.
Next speaker is down in Los Angeles, Maria Briones, a Los Angeles member of ACE, the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment. ACE is a grassroots member organization fighting for tenant and housing rights up and down the state. Maria, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Good evening to everybody. My name is Maria Briones. I'm representing ACE in Los Angeles. I live in the 8th district. And my question is, by being one of the victims of all of the abuse with the housing that we have right now, concerning evictions, which were once common and rare in our country, are now widespread, with hundreds of thousands of Americans forced out of their homes annually. Evictions are not just as the condition of poverty. While we do not have comprehensive national data on evictions, eviction seems to disproportionately impact women, specifically single mothers, as well as older people and immigrants. Housing is often seen as the responsibility of local governments, but we are facing a national housing affordability crisis. How would you fight to protect more families from evictions, and would you support some form of rent control at the federal level? Apparently, we tenants have become disposable people because landlords want more money for our need to have housing.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to hear from ACE. I did a lot of work with you all when I got my start in California Public Service during the foreclosure crisis, and was able to work with ACE in Los Angeles to work on issues of blight and helping keep people in their homes. So it's great to be back in conversation with you. I have seen firsthand through that work what it means when a family loses a home, whether it's to foreclosure and homeownership, whether it's to eviction as a rental. Eviction is devastating. It is absolutely part of creating a difficult stretch cycle of poverty that is difficult for families, and it affects almost every aspect of a family's well-being. You're absolutely right. The data that we do have on evictions absolutely shows that it disproportionately affects women, particularly single moms. I'm a single mom of 3 kids, 1 girl and 2 boys, and I would be at very, very high risk of eviction. Being a single mom is one of the single most predictive factors of being a victim of eviction, as well as one of the things that makes you most likely to face rental discrimination. I think the federal government needs to stop pointing the finger at states and counties and cities and get in the game helping on housing. Since the very first days of this campaign, I have said that tackling the housing affordability crisis will be one of my very top priorities in the US Senate. And, Democratic leadership doesn't seem to grapple with the problems of housing. They don't get that there is a huge federal need here and a huge federal role. I recently had an event at the University of California, Davis. There were about 75 undergrad and graduate students in the room. I asked them, how many of you ever expect to own a home in California in your lifetime? Not a single hand went up. That is a real problem for our state, that young people do not see an economically secure future here. Homeownership is also, as ACE knows well, a huge racial justice issue, in no small part because of the racist policies of the US federal government in the 1930s and 40s. There are 3 in 4 white households own a home, but that number is cut into fewer than half when we're talking about Black households. And owning a home determines so much: people's educational opportunity, their connection to their neighborhoods, their retirement security, their ability to have clean air and clean water sometimes, and of course, retirement security and generational wealth. So tackling the housing affordability crisis is just essential to closing the racial wealth gap. And I am going to push the Democratic Party to build a really meaningful national platform on housing that rethinks the federal role and makes new investments in everything from Section 8 rental vouchers and making them available to every single person who qualifies, to making sure that we are designing new and innovative projects to help close the housing affordability gap.
So Congresswoman, we are up at the 30 minutes, and out of the abundance of fairness, because we did not give Congresswoman Barbara Lee an opportunity to make an opening statement, we're going to condense your closing statement to 30 seconds. But we would love to have your closing remarks, and we want to thank you again so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much. I just want to close by talking about one of my passions, which is oversight. Oversight is about being a watchdog for families, for their budgets, for their tax dollars, for their retirement savings. Oversight is core to who progressives are and what they fight for. Groups like working family parties fight so hard to get things passed, but we need to make sure those laws are actually working as intended. We can't let politicians take a victory lap at press conferences and then disappear. We have to hold them accountable to do the work of oversight. I do it with my whiteboard, I do it without the whiteboard, and most of all, I do it in partnership with community, with people who bring issues to my attention and let me hold folks accountable in DC. I'm excited to do that in the US Senate, and I'm grateful to be in community and in conversation with all of you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman Porter. So we hope that everyone has enjoyed tonight's forum and we're able to learn a lot more about the two incredible candidates that are running for US Senate in 2024, what they care about and what they will fight for as our future senator. So Working Families Party is not just invested in congressional races. We are invested in races up and down the ballot. We know that an elected leader can make a big impact, if not even a larger impact at the state and local level. So we're dedicated to identifying and recruiting candidates to run. And we are launching a campaign camp this summer in support of that. So recruiting candidates to move a working families agenda in California from school board to city council and our state legislature. It will start on Monday, May 22nd at 6 p.m. We want you to join, and it will go on through June and July. If you are interested in applying, check out our posts on social media right now, register, and we will follow up with you immediately. Finally, we are a membership organization, and we want to invite all of you to join us. So please text CA Senate at 30403. And we're going to send a brief survey asking who you thought did the best tonight. And we will also ask if you'd like to volunteer for either candidate and share your contact information if you would like with those candidates and share how you can engage with Working Families Party in California. So again, text CA Senate to 30403 to take the survey and to join our party. Finally, I just want to thank the incredible California team at Working Families who made this event possible, worked tirelessly over the last 2 months, along with all of our member leaders and member affiliates. And I want to give a big shout out to Jorge Contreras, our senior campaign manager, who is still working by taking photos right now and flawlessly managed every aspect of this event while still making time to cheer for the Warriors. Go Warriors. And because we're California, go Lakers.
Yeah, come on now.
I just want California to win. Now, back to the real comedy, to our political correspondents, Nato Green and Francesca Fiorentine.
That's what everyone wanted. Nato, you gonna do a tight three?
Hi, y'all. We're just gonna jump in right here.
No, I'm not going to do a tight three. I'm going to do my usual loose, rambling 11, perhaps. Hey, did you guys have fun? I'm really excited that Jane said that the Working Families Party is recruiting candidate camp to train people to run for office because I don't know if you've seen the people who are in office, but some of the current people in office leave something to be desired. They have small shoes to fill. So please step up, everybody. The bar is quite low with some of them. So so did you have a good time watching Katie Porter, Francesca?
I had a great time. I think strong choice on the blazer, and I think that was the most important thing. Although we didn't get to Palestine, but
Didn't get to Palestine.
I do think that Representative
Oh, wait,
Porter...
Jane is saying that Palestine is in the candidate questionnaire that the Working Families Party will send out.
Okay.
So she will have to answer in written form or possibly a doodle using the whiteboard.
Yeah.
So Katie Porter's district, she is in the OC, and while she was talking and she was talking about what it was like to go door to door as a progressive in Huntington Beach, I had like a PTSD flashback to performing a sold out show for 500 people at the Irvine Improv Comedy Club.
Yeah.
Which really felt like being behind enemy lines. And I just did my usual, overly thinky left wing, kill the rich lighthearted, whimsical comedy that has become my brand. And afterwards, like there were, like the club manager had said that they had sold out of white wine because there were so many white women there. And they came up to me like after the show. I was standing outside, and all these people were like, "You were so funny, and we so enjoyed it so much." And
Don't tell our husbands.
Don't tell our husbands, and we're gonna foreclose on your entire neighborhood. So it was sort of really that energy.
NATO only performs in safe spaces. San Francisco, the East Bay, and
That's right.
parts of Los Angeles.
Parts of Los Angeles. Yeah.
Look, what I think is very different about the two candidates that jumped out at me is how specific Representative Porter was. She does the kind of specificity that makes your eyes glaze over, but in a good way. And I think that that's really great. Meaning, like, she makes me feel like she's got it. And I'm like, oh, good. You're talking about big pharma, but specifics, not just like big pharma's bad, but no, like all of the shenanigans they get up to. Talking about the workforce transformation in the Green New Deal, which I think is so important. Like, it is very easy to meet the right's reaction to something like the Green New Deal with just another platitude, or just sort of reiterating what it is and not breaking it down and making it feel less scary. And I feel like Representative Porter does have a way with breaking these issues down and making them feel not just less scary, but more actually doable, right? Like, we have to rethink federal government's role in public housing. Like, let's do it. Like, yeah, and so I thought she came armed with specifics, which I mean is kind of what we expect from her at this point.
I think I like that her closing remark was a call for oversight. Like, you don't usually think of like calls for budgetary oversight as like a rallying campaign moment, but suddenly she was like talking about oversight. I was like, oh, that sort of makes my heart pitter patter a little bit. I didn't realize I would feel my pulse quicken at the thought of oversight. So
yeah, it's
I
like
thought maybe
when
gun control or free healthcare, but no, it's actually oversight. It's really exciting, sexy issue.
I mean, this is Working Families Party in California. We had to settle for Bernie Sanders, our choice for president, being the head of the Senate budget chair, and we were supposed to get really excited about it. But I guess we're supposed to be excited about it. It's something important. I just wanted more. But anyway,
I also want to know, like, it just felt like tonally, like, I appreciate that Porter began by like being super gracious about Barbara Lee and about the interpreters. Like, like, we're in a moment where so much of politics feels so like spiteful and toxic, and having people run against each other and be like, I also like this other person. That's just it was like a refreshing change of tone.
Right. I mean, it is, an open primary, so that makes sense. And also I feel like the real enemy is Mr. Adam Schiff. I'm gonna go talk to my mom tonight, and she'll be like, I really like Adam. So like, Mom, you just like him because the whole Trump stuff, right? But there's more to that. You can't beat fascism just with, like grandstanding. You need a plan. You need a long game.
You can't beat fascism with grandstanding? That's
no, they're really good at that.
Have you been to San Francisco? That's like our whole that's our whole city motto.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, and interestingly, and this is very fun to me. Did you know that Schiff tried to get into the Congressional Progressive Caucus and was booted out? Or he had to rescind. It was like in Fight Club when you have to pledge, and you like wait on the porch for days and days. That's how the Congressional Progressive Caucus works. And the first rule of it is you're not allowed to talk about it, which is probably why we don't really have progressive change.
Right. I appreciate that Katie Porter talked about home ownership and the response to the question from the person from ACE and needing to talk about housing and rent control and the right to own a home. And
yes.
What, as everyone knows, home ownership is key to reducing racial disparities, and so we need to establish a right to own a home and a right to what goes with that is receive room and board catalogs in the mail. Absolutely. Like every day of the week. So everyone deserves a room and board catalog.
I want your junk
they're
mail.
showing us pictures of the watch parties. That's very cool.
Everyone looks amazing. You look great, and I hope you're still watching now. Hell
Look
yeah!
at that. So can I talk to the people here? So people here in San Francisco, how did you feel about the debate?
It wasn't really a debate, but like.
Did anyone change your mind based on? I'm going to.
Just do the screamometer.
Like America itself. This is the illusion of democracy. So
you need to repeat what they say unless they have a mic, Nato.
Oh yeah. So I said it was a debate, and someone argued that it wasn't a debate. It was a forum. So they want to make sure they're being a watchdog on the rules of procedure.
Yeah, we got the Senate parliamentarian
exercising
up
oversight.
in here.
And then Jane Him pointed out that I could call on people instead of specifically instead of just throwing to the audience in general. Sydney, come talk to me. That's fine.
Oh man, you're walking Oakland. You're walking Godfrey Plaza too. You're walking the rooms here.
Sydney, what's your full name?
Sydney Simpson.
And you were with the Harvey Milk Club, and you're a member of the California Nurses Association. Is that right?
That's correct. How did you know that?
Because you told me that 7 minutes ago. And so how did you feel watching the debate? What effect did it have on you? Wait, are you already blackout drunk?
I've been here since 3 p.m.
Yay, Sydney.
That's a yes.
No, I think for me, this is just really refreshing. Like, it's nice to live in a place where we can listen to two women Democrats go at it, who actually have a shot, who aren't just gonna like bump each other out. They were like respectful of each other, no, there's like no hate here. This is just lovely. This is like how it should be everywhere.
And can I ask you? So the Milk Club is a venerable LGBTQ Democratic club in San Francisco, and given the national legislative onslaught attacking our trans siblings in states all over the country, including recently at Walgreens in San Francisco, what is important in the Milk Club watching this candidate forum in this race?
So interesting that you just asked that.
What are the odds?
I didn't tell you that. We just started the trans.
I just have 7 LGBT flags right in front of me to remind me that I might want to ask a related question.
Ask a gay question. No, I'm definitely you gave me an opportunity to shout us out. If you don't live in the Bay Area, if you would like to join up, we just started the Trans Caucus in the Harvey Milk Club.
Hell yeah.
So we'll be focusing on issues such as Banco Brown. Thank you for bringing that up as well. But again, I mean, I hate to be a sellout, but both of these candidates would do right by us, So I love that I have 2 really good choices in that sense, but that's not the answer that you want. I'm sure.
Does that make you a sellout?
I think we might need to have a talk about what it means to be a sellout.
I love these women.
Yeah.
I don't love politicians, but I just love what's happening here. This is why I pay too much to live here. This is why I pay so much to live here.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Sydney. Thank you, Milk Club, for co-sponsoring the event.
Come talk to me.
Okay.
If you want to join the Milk Club.
Talk to Sydney if you want to join the Milk Club. What did you say? The new catchphrase? Ask some gay shit. Over there. Is there someone? One of the other sponsors is SF Rising. Is there someone from SF Rising who come up? Okay. Okay, yeah, you gotta show the colors.
I might be the only SF Rising person. Actually, no, that I shouldn't say that. There's lots of us here.
We're all SF Rising people.
Thank you, Nato.
Okay, so tell the people, because there's 1 million people watching over stream. Tell the people about SF Rising.
SF Rising is a political grassroots fund. Well, this is SF Rising Action Fund, and we have been pushing for progressive candidates for over a decade. We are pushing an agenda for working class communities of color that, really stands up to corporations and tech and developers. And we're trying to be here for the long term. So join us.
And I have heard that the landlord lobby in San Francisco and the Association of Realtors thinks that like SF Rising is the true power brokers in San Francisco politics, and that you have a stranglehold on city politics. So, what are your nefarious master plans for the future of the city?
Ooh, nefarious master plans. Well, if I share them, they won't be as powerful. I think it's great that our work speaks for itself. I think we're in numbers actually smaller than people think, but when it's election time, we go hard and we knock doors.
And so watching the Senate forum and hearing what the candidates said, did you hear anything that surprised you?
Anything that surprised me? I mean, I think I appreciate how much Barbara Lee has done just as a congressperson. Like she was a Black Panther. She got involved as a young person because she saw Shirley Chisholm speak. Like, I think, just all the ways that she has stood up for working people for so long really inspires me.
That's great. And cool.
Nice data.
And which was your favorite of the? I think the most important contributions to the event tonight is the food over there. Did you have any of the food?
I had like 20 shrimp egg rolls, and my stomach hurts just a little bit.
And is that good or not good for knocking on doors when you try to turn out votes when you have to poop a little bit?
I don't know how to answer that
question. Okay. It seems like a good what?
I will say what really fuels good campaigns is boba.
Oh. Note to self. Get the boba. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. SF Rising, everybody. Find Celia if you want to sign up.
This is so nice to be connected to a bunch of Californians. Now I'm just going to get woo on everybody.
Oh, wait, Francesca's about to cry.
Let me just get my crystals over here representing Los Angeles. I don't have my crystals with handy. That's probably why this room is cursed. But it's just nice to connect through Californians around this state. We have so much work to do. We are so many, and we really need to be leading the charge. And I can't effing wait to be represented by hopefully one of the two of these candidates in the US Senate, because I would feel so much I would want to lock myself to their desks, because I feel like they would have nice desks and they'd like bring us water and stuff, and like they're I feel like their staff would give us shrimp egg rolls.
There'd be good snacks at the office occupation. That's a really good point.
Absolutely.
It's a thing to look for in a protest.
No,
Jane, is there anything else you need to cover, or can we bring it home?
Let's bring it home.
Oh, so Jane Kim is informing me that translation was available in Cantonese, Korean, Spanish, and American Sign Language. Woo! That's incredible. Speaking of our subversive California values that we're trying to inflict on the rest of the country, is including everybody. Radical ideas like that. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for being here in person. Thanks for watching online.
Thank you.
Oh, it looks like they're like gradually fading me out on the screen here.
Yeah.
So I think someone in a control room wants me to shut the fuck up. So with that, everyone buy Jane Kim 11 drinks. And thanks so much, Working Families Parties, and good night.
Good night. Follow me on social media. Franny Fio at FRAN. Follow NATO Green.
Francesca's Patreon.
Listen to the Bituation Room podcast. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.